Okay, so Mike, you worked with Durso for 3 years, right?
Correct. Originally,
And
we were
during
only
that
supposed
time, he was recording everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. What basically the day would begin where we'd have a topic of topics to address from prior recordings. And when he got done making a recording, the recordings would be lengthy. I tried to review it as quickly as I could. For the next, I talked to him every night about what we're going to do the next day, who we're going to meet. And it was just to close loops on the evidence so that, there was overwhelming evidence on any number of people. A scheme would come up, like there was a scheme regarding stock fraud where they were banging tens of millions of dollars through a corrupt check cashing facility. So I came up with a scenario to fund a check under the guise of somebody stealing from a huge corporation that lacked control so we can identify the check cashing facility and the individuals involved. And the recording we made was, again, hilarious. Nobody's to meet this guy. Nobody's to know this guy. And it was like, okay, let's create a scenario to go through this process.
And I'll just let you know, Vlad, at the very end, the takedown that Mike orchestrated was referred to by the FBI. And the public doesn't know this, which we go into in the book. But the direct quote, if I'm remembering correctly, was that his takedown could be considered, quote, the most significant and successful undercover operation in the history of law enforcement. You're talking all law enforcement all time, not just New York, not just the Mafia. And that's what Mike was able to accomplish through his use of Cookie Durso.
Yeah, he was brighter than most guys on the street, into money, schemes, and just a tough kid. He didn't back down. There was a guy, Johnny Bull. He called him to his face, Johnny Bullshit. I mean, there's a lot of, it's just his nature. And that's the hypocrisy of it is somebody that's a little guy, 5'6", doesn't like you because of how you conduct yourself, will be available to kill you if somebody wants to kill you. And that's, it's an odd process.
Well, yeah. I mean, Durso basically took down the whole leadership of the Genovese family, including Vincent Gigante and essentially every acting street boss for the past 20 years.
Correct.
I do believe he also, the recordings we made with him facilitated the murder of Adolfo Bruno from Springfield, Massachusetts. And that was because Adolfo Bruno on recordings, and again, there's details in the book about secretly inducting Mike into his group. And in part of the conversation, he cited how Chin likes him and that he used to bring guns to Chin for murders. I mean, those are things you do not speak about. It may be your ego wanting to impress somebody, but that's Chin would kill you. And again, when you look at, I think the kid who killed him may not even know why, because it was orchestrated with the West Side Crew and other members, powerful members of the Genovese family. But I do think it stemmed from the recording that Durso made with Bruno.
Just so you understand the impact of what you recited, Vlad, about every acting boss for the last 20 years, Mike twice took down the active leadership of the Genovese crime family. Genovese crime family is the most powerful criminal organization in America. No other agent, to my knowledge, ever took down the leadership. He did it twice, to the degree that they were caught on tape publicly. Actually, this wasn't on tape. This was reported to him by a witness, that Barney Bellomo, who was the acting boss of the Genovese crime family, was so aware of Mike that he warned other criminals not to commit certain crimes because Mike Campi might find out about it. The guy sitting to my left.
Not might, will.
Yeah, that he would
Which
learn
I
about
laughed
it.
at when I heard that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, ultimately in 2007, Durso was sentenced. So I guess he secretly pled guilty, a long time ago, right?
98, June of 98.
Exactly.
The day after he met with Mike, he went into court the very next day and pled guilty to murder with a possible death sentence. Mike began working him the very next day.
We made a recording that day.
Okay, so he admitted to murder back in 98, and then you fast forward almost 20 years, 2007, now he's being sentenced. And, there was a lot of letters that you guys wrote on his behalf and so forth. And essentially at the end of that process, he got no prison time, right?
Correct.
Yeah, which is absolutely appropriate when you look at the devastating impact that he had to permit Mike to take down the active leadership of the Genovese, key members of the Gambinos, the Luccheses, the Columbos, the Bonannos. I mean, nothing like that has ever been done before. So if you want to encourage other gangsters to step forward and collapse organized crime, you want to send out the most encouraging message to others. Step forward, you'll be rewarded. That's why.
And again, I think it's because he realized the hypocrisy of the life and wanted to be out of it. And again, when you think he got shot in the head, couldn't retaliate. And there's so many recordings that sort of supported his position to leave. His wife, his family. I think there are a lot of, again, I think he's brighter than most people. And when he looked at it, he was relocating to Florida. But his personality is one that I think at some point can rub people the wrong way because he doesn't back down. He'll call a stupid person a stupid person. And if it's somebody above, like the funny thing was Sammy Meatballs, was an acting capo with this PD Red, but they would use Durso to conduct business with other family capos and make recommendations of what they should do, on how the family should conduct itself. And it was impressive from a street sense about who he was in the life. But the fact that they were postponing his induction because the acting boss, who really was the one that screwed up, didn't want to make him because it was insulting how he spoke to him on the phone. I mean, it's so stupid on so many levels. He was an unknown male calling a guy that got screwed in a gambling operation by the employee of the acting boss. It's like, of course, that guy, the boss's employee, was wrong, not Durso. And you call him on the blind without identifying yourself and tell him to stay away to a guy that's tough? They're not staying away. I could see so many others going back and doing the same thing.
The irony is there's a good argument that could be made that he would be running the Genovese crime family today if it weren't for his own crime family shooting him in the head and then threatening to kill him again. They sabotaged themselves. They shot themselves in the foot, and he ended up destroying them.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Because there was such power with Barney Bellomo and the Bronx crew, and they're younger. Barney's the current, supposedly, official boss of the Genovese family now. And again, I charged Barney a few times. And the reason I charged him, even when he was in prison, was he agreed to the original indictment that I had, pled guilty to a 10-year hit, and then he appealed it. And that, when I was thinking, so you're appealing something you agreed to get a reduced sentence? So I thought, all right, I'll just go indict him again when I make recordings and evidence. And, we'll play that game that way.